recovered through the saving grace of Jesus Christ and the power of the Holy Spirit moving in and through my life on a daily basis. Tonight, I want to talk to you about coping in isolation. I live when I'm at home with my wife and my 3 adult children. And we're in the same house, but we don't do a lot together. But just being there with them is a comfort. And basically, I think we think of isolation as being by ourselves. We've been in lockdown together through the coronavirus for a number of weekends where we've spent all of our time in the house together. And as I said, we all do our own thing, but just knowing that each other is there is a comfort for us. So I think when we talk about isolation, we can be isolated with other people and we can be isolated without other people. Tonight I want to read to you from a verse from the Bible. And what I want to read is from Hebrews chapter 10, starting at verse 22. It says, "Let us draw near to God with a sincere heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience, and having our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we have." The hope we profess. "For he who promised is faithful, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. Let us not give up meeting together, as some of us are in the habit of doing, but let's encourage one another." And tonight, I want to look at 3 things from isolation, and they're from that verse. And verse 22 says, "Let us draw near to God." I think it's amazing that wherever we are, whatever we're doing, whether we're alone or with other people, we all have access to God. Personal access. We all have personal access to Him and can talk to Him anywhere about anything. And that verse 22 says, "Let us draw near to God." And Romans 5:2 tells us that we're justified through faith and our peace comes through Jesus Christ. It's through putting our faith in Him that we can relieve or cope with the isolation. I've said this before, I think, on these videos. I had a man, Scotsman, when I first did the bridge program, called Peter Miller. And Pete Miller was a recovered alcoholic. He's the first person I ever heard in his testimony talk about being recovered through the grace of God. And Pete, we used to call Grumpy. And Grumpy used to say, when you asked him how he was, he used to say, "I'm coping. Sometimes I cope well, and sometimes I don't cope so well, but I always cope." And I think that's important for us all in these trying times, that we always cope, that we learn to rely on Jesus, put our faith in Him and trust Him. You know, I've heard people talk about this time and being alone. And I was talking to somebody today, and for me, I spend 80% of my time away from my family with my work. But I know they're always there. And that makes a difference in my life. Every day I speak to my wife on the phone, and that brings me comfort. Knowing that they're there brings me comfort. And I don't feel, I live in a house on my own most of the time, and I don't feel isolated. I don't feel isolated because I've got a family who love me and care for me and basically relieve me of the isolation. I don't feel isolated because I'm with God all the time. I spend my time reading the Bible. I spend my time praying to God. Not all the time. I do other things as well. But they're the important things in my life. Verse 23 says, let us hold on to hope. It's all about being in isolation. For me, is about growing in faith, about getting to know God better as we spend time together. It's about putting my hope in Him that this will all end, and when it does end, He'll still be there. And the hope that we have of recovery is a hope that is an anchor for us. It's firm and secure. If we learn the 12 steps and apply them to our lives, then our lives will work out. It says in the Bible that God works everything in our lives for our good. And I believe that this time, when we're spending time in our houses, away from other people, is a time where we need to grow in faith and need to get to know ourselves better and get to know Him better so that we can apply what we've learned through the 12 steps and through reading the Bible. Verse 24 says, let us encourage each other. It's about, this verse to me is about motivating each other. It says in Job 16:3, how will your long-winded speeches never end? There's many of us in recovery who've been talking the talk for a lot of years without walking the walk. I was like that. I talked the talk without walking the walk. It's now time to start walking the walk. Because right now, every one of us, wherever we are, whatever we're doing, our lives are in God's hands. In step 3, we turned our wills and our lives over to the care of God. We gave everything to Him and put our lives in there and said, God, okay, whatever you want me to do, I will do it. Wherever you want me to go, I will go. Easy to say, not always easy to do. And it says, let's not give up meeting. It says that in verse 25. If we hope to build healthy, growing spiritual relationships, we need to meet with others ahead of us in recovery and behind us in recovery. And we need to support each other. God has a high moral standard, and we're all called to follow Him. When you think about coping in isolation, what you need to do is find out what works for you. Because I don't believe that recovery is the same for us all. I would dread to think anybody would walk the walk that I've walked, because God planned that just for me. He put it together just for me, and he walked with me through every step of it. It's important as we go through recovery that we understand we're not alone. None of us are alone. And when testing comes, we need to rely on him. We need to put our faith into practice. I might have said this before too. My sponsor, Robert Coleman, said to me many years ago, you spell faith R-I-S-K. If you don't take any risks, then you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to grow. Because life's about taking risks. And the biggest risk that any of us can take in our lives is to put our faith in him, put our trust in him, to learn what it means to draw near to him. Day and night, he's with me. Day and night, he's with you, whether you acknowledge him or not. And my hope for the future is that God will use my ministry to reach other people, to change lives for the better. That people will learn that the 12 steps come from God. They didn't come from Bill Wilson. They come from God, directly from God. And you can find in the Beatitudes of the Bible the 12 steps and everything that's in them. It's important, as I said, that we encourage each other. Take time to get out of our comfort zone and do things that we wouldn't normally do to help other people along the road to recovery. Through this time of coronavirus, I don't know about you, but my online meetings have got more. I've got a better relationship with my mother and my siblings today because of the coronavirus. We have a family group that we established and we talk to each other almost every day. We haven't done that for a long, long, long time. And we've got to know each other again because we've all drifted off, started our own families and are doing our own thing. And now we're probably closer than we've been in years. Through the internet, we can all reach other people. I talked to somebody today who's talking about the fact that ministry for them, because of online social media, has grown. And I believe that's the same for all of us. I believe all of us, while we're away, isolated from other people, have drawn closer to a lot of people because of the way that we're now doing life. Life has changed. It'll never be the same. But I believe that it's changed for the better. I believe that God, through this, has taught us all to cope with things that we weren't used to coping with. He's given us the tools to get through this. And I thank you for listening to me tonight, and I look forward to talking to you next week when we talk about self-discipline. Thank you. God bless you. I look forward to talking to you again next week.